We have some more participants, attendees. Great. Thank you for coming, folks. It's 6:30, so we're going to get started. I imagine there may be some more attendees that will come in as we get going, but I want to welcome all of you. My name is Kelly Hodgman Burns. I'm the Director of School Counseling here at Thornton Academy, and we really appreciate that you're coming and spending some time with us tonight. I was just saying to these folks before folks were coming in that last year at this time, we had our last live event. So this group of panelists were on the stage in the auditorium at TA. And so it's sort of interesting to be back in this forum, but they're great and they have a lot to offer. And so we're really glad that you're joined us and can participate here. Before I introduce everyone, I just want you all to know that you have a Q&A capability. So if you have a question throughout, school counselors will be monitoring the questions, and we'll be able to ask our panelists as we go along. But we do have a full agenda here, a loose agenda, and it's really intended to help you and your children as you navigate this process with admissions. So the outcome for us tonight is that you'll have an opportunity really to hear from these admission counselors in the state who have worked collectively for many, many years in the field. Each will have an opportunity to speak specifically about their institutions, and we'll also discuss a variety of general or global topics in the college admission world. I'll be sharing questions with the panelists, who will take turns responding. Additionally, as I mentioned, there is a chat feature here, and the counselors will monitor and and ask the panelists the questions as they arise. So just so you know, the webinar is being recorded. It will be posted probably next week at some point. And for those of you that want to check it again and listen to some of the questions and the answers later on, or if you missed something, it is there for you. And for those of you that are watching it later and aren't with us tonight, hopefully you will gain as much from this experience as those that are live. I'm going to introduce the panelists. So we have Nick Ray, who's the Senior Associate Director of Recruitment at the University of Maine. Thanks, Nick. We also have Molly Lichten, who's the Assistant Director of Admission at Southern Maine Community College. We're joined by Darcy Flaherty, who's the Director of Freshman Admission at the University of New England, and Mitchell Bean, who's the Associate Director of Admission at the University of Southern Maine. We're also joined by our school counselors for the class of 2022. Kelsey Ramsey is here with us, and Jeff Kamari, Abby Moore, and Melanie Serrano. And again, my name is Kelly Hodgman Burns, and I have some students on my caseload, and I'm the Director of School Counseling. So without further ado, we're just going to launch into this, and I'm going to throw some topics and some questions and let our panelists speak to those. And so Mitch, I'm going to start with you. Can you talk to us a little bit about a campus visit and an interview? And what should students bring with them? And do you keep track of those visits? And knowing right now that we're in the midst of the end of COVID, hopefully, but sort of how it might be specific to this particular time, and then more generally as well.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight, first of all. Well, obviously the campus visit experience has changed pretty significantly in the past year. We are lucky enough to be able to offer visits at this point in time for admitted students. Our hope is that moving through the summer, that will shift, and then into the fall, that will shift a little more to allow some more flexibility for families to visit. Speaking from a USM perspective, as well as a previous institution I worked at, actually, we do track who visits a campus. I think it's important that an institution understands that a student is interested enough to spend a significant amount of time at that place. So it is something that we're keeping track of. In regards to the visit in and of itself, I think it's really important for students to ask questions. More often than not, you're going to be guided around that campus by a current student at that institution. So ask about what their experience is like, ask where they're from. I think the most important question you could ask that student is why they chose that place. I think everybody on this panel tonight understands that not every student who applies to their institution is going to go to their institution, that it's really up to the student to make that decision and find the fit. And I think visiting a place more than any other experience during your college search gives you a chance to see what that fit might be like. You know, can I see myself eating 3 meals a day in this place, or spending 4 hours in labs a week in that location? It really gives you a chance to see kind of the lifeblood of that institution and whether or not you think you could fit in there. I think so going back to part of the question about, you know, how things are now. Right now, it's a one-on-one kind of tour system with one of our student ambassadors. It's scheduled. You have to fill out a form on our website, and you know, you pick dates that you hope to come, and hopefully those dates are available. That's why we ask you to pick more than one at this point in time. But hopefully, you know, in the near future, you know, USM's plan is to go back to you know, things as kind of normal starting in the fall, and our hope is that our visitor experience will kind of follow suit with some of the safety precautions that we're going to put in place.
Nick, can you speak a little bit about what's happening with the same at UMaine? And are there other ways that a student can get to know a campus?
Yes. So at the University of Maine, and I think I can speak for at least the University of Maine system, technically, you still can walk around our campuses. You can drive around our campuses. We just ask for the safety of our students and our faculty and staff that you don't enter any buildings. So it may not be an ideal situation to do a visit, you could still kind of go up to a campus and see the campus physically right now. I think you'll see that a lot of colleges and universities have really adapted a virtual platform as well, trying to offer virtual tours or a virtual experience as a whole too. And I think because of the situation that we've all kind of improved that overall. I will say from a UMaine perspective too, we are offering some specific events for current juniors and rising seniors for next year's class. We'll have an open house that we're planning probably April, May time period that will be virtual. So this is an opportunity for you to still interact with the University of Maine specifically, get to hear from faculty and other staff members on the campus as a whole. So there are opportunities, even if you're not setting foot on our campus, to still interact, in which we still are, of course, looking at how interested you are as a student and tracking that interest as a whole. So I always tell students and families there's some benefits that came out of this experience for us as well. We are offering interview opportunities via Zoom. This is not just Maine specific, but you'll see that probably colleges across the United States, you now may not have been able to visit and do an interview in person, but now you can do it via Zoom with that institution, which can be very helpful as well. But we're very similar to the University of Southern Maine in the sense of right now our visits are geared to our accepted students just because they haven't had an opportunity at the moment to even visit campus in the last 12 months as a whole. And we're hoping that come summer and fall, we'll be able to resume with a more routine daily schedule of tours.
Great. Darcy, can you speak a little bit to how a student can find the best fit college, and how you as an admissions office is building a class? So how does a college do this as they're reading across an application or applications?
Sure. So it's definitely a mutual decision. And I think visiting can be the first opportunity for us to get to know you. So if that is an option for you to find out if UNE, for example, or whatever college you are visiting is a good fit for you. It also kind of gives us an opportunity to meet you as well. And then your application. So when you decide to apply, your whole application is a great indicator that you are interested. In addition to the application, you'll also be submitting supplemental information to us. whether it's a recommendation, whether it's your essay. So we really try to look at the whole picture to determine if we feel academically you're a good fit, socially you're a good fit. We get this through a variety of different ways. Like I said, the application, your transcripts, and all of that. So we really try to do a full assessment. I think I can speak to any college university across the country that it's not a one size fits all. We are looking for multiple things, and it can be a different thing every year. So in terms of shaping a class, at UNE, we don't have quotas, and we're not looking for any particular type of student, or we're not looking for a particular cap on how many students we admit from each high school. I know we get that question a lot. But to shape a class, we're really looking for students that are interested in UNE, would be active and engage in our community. And that would be an academic fit as well, that we feel like will excel. We are happy to support students. It might be, a challenge, but we're really looking to support students in any way that we can. And I know I speak for most colleges when I say that too, so.
Molly, can you speak to a little bit about how you build your class, your incoming freshman class in the community college arena?
Sure. Yeah, it is a little bit different in that our application process is pretty different. We have a pretty short application. It's pretty straightforward. The only thing that we really look for is a transcript with our applicants. So we don't necessarily get the background from the application of what a student is interested in or what they might be involved in outside of school. So we really get that when we have the opportunity to meet the students one-on-one, whether it be when they come to campus or when we do on-spot admit days, or just reaching out for general information from us. We are very open and accessible to our students, and that's something that we really focus on, is that access piece. And I think with the fit piece of it, that really combines a bunch of different things. It can be academic programs that you might be interested in, that best suit the needs for what your goals are, or if it's a place where you feel like you can thrive socially because there's activities and involvement on that campus that are things that you're interested in. So it's like Darcy said, it's kind of a mutual thing. There's a bunch of different pieces that have to fit in. And what I always try to talk to students about is not necessarily focusing on what they think the quote unquote norm might be for them. Again, like Darcy said, it's not a one size fits all. Everybody can take kind of a different path. And we're just looking for those students who want to take the community college path and know that that is the best fit for them at that point in time.
So could one of you speak to transcripts, because you all, or maybe all of you could speak to transcripts and what you're looking for in terms of levels of classes that you see in a transcript. Also, what weighted is versus unweighted. Speak to the GPA. I'm asking a lot in one particular question. And also the role of the SAT, maybe pre-2021 and moving forward, what that might mean for admissions.
Go ahead, Darcy.
Oh, I'll go quick, Nick, I promise I won't talk too long. I was just gonna follow up and say that the transcript probably is the most important piece of the application process. So we wanna see how you are as a student academically, especially those first 3 years. We're very sensitive to what's been going on. So I hope that doesn't stress you out with the pandemic, because we're all in the same boat there. But academics really do come first. So we want to see that you challenge yourself. So college prep as a minimum. Most students are taking a mix of higher level courses. GPA is also an important factor that we've had a lot of research done at UNE and across the country to show that the GPA is a strong predictor of college success. So that's a little snippet of what I have to say about the transcript. Go ahead, Nick.
Darcy did a great job. So the only thing that I would add is, especially as you're applying to different colleges and universities, different majors within a college or university may have different entrance requirements. So we're paying a little closer attention to certain classes. For example, at the University of Maine for engineering, we're going to be paying close attention to your science courses, your lab sciences, your math courses as well, to see if you're meeting requirements there. The University of Maine, in regards to test scores, for years we required test scores as part of the admissions process, part of the merit scholarship process as well. So about a year ago, we decided we're going to have to, meet the needs of the students, and realizing that there's barriers in place right now in the sense of students can't take test scores. So they can't take the SAT or ACT. And I know that's slowly starting to be possible for students, but we were test optional this past year. And I can say in confidence, we'll be test optional next year as well, which is nice for students. It did mean that we had to redesign our merit scholarship program at the University of Maine, because we were really based on GPA and test scores before. And now we've gone to a model in which we're looking at your GPA, but we're also looking at your academic rigor. We're seeing how many courses you've taken at the honors level, the advanced placement level, and how that correlates with your GPA. And from there, we're developing a merit scholarship offer to you. So it's changed quite a bit for us at UMaine. And this coming year, I'm happy to say that we'll be test optional as well. I can say test optional at UMaine is almost similar to being test blind, in the sense of, if students submitted test scores this year, it had no negative impact whatsoever on your admission to the University of Maine or your merit scholarship. So that's good news, if you're applying to UMaine specifically. But test optional can be very different depending on the institution. Some institutions, if they are test optional and you submit scores, it will factor into the admissions decision. So you want to make sure that you ask those questions if you're planning on submitting SAT scores to an institution, what role that will play in the application process. Because as I said, we're very unique at UMaine in the sense of, it had no negative impact and could only have a positive impact on your admission as a whole, but that's not the case at every institution.
Mitch, do you want to speak to that, the transcript as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really just going to echo pretty much everything Nick and Darcy said, that, looking for college prep and above for the most part. And for specific majors, as Nick said, engineering, nursing, things like that, looking for strong science and math scores specifically, because you're going to run into a lot of it at the collegiate level. So one thing I will mention is those students who take NAAPs or dual enrollments, things like that, we look favorably at those. And if you are able to take, for example, an AP exam, making sure you submit those test scores to see if your university gives credit for performance on those exams. And if you take any dual enrollment classes, to make sure you submit those transcripts so they can be evaluated for potential credit at whatever institution you're looking at. Those would be the couple things I'd add in.
I think it's important maybe to recognize as well that for those students that are taking advantage of the early college program, that your institutions are using some of those credits towards application, or excuse me, requirements for while the student is at your institution. So that can be really helpful. Kelsey, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, we had a question in the chat. So I'm hoping you all can talk about letters of recommendation next, and how many letters you require, and what you typically look for in a letter of recommendation. Mitch, maybe you want to start this one?
Yeah, so I'd say on average, I see between 1 and 3 letters of recommendation. After 3, they all kind of start to blend together with similar adjectives and characteristics that they'll use to kind of describe you as a student. So 1 to 3 is usually a pretty healthy number and gives us an idea of kind of who you are academically, what you do inside and outside of your school, and a little bit into your character as a person and how you might be contributing to our campus and our community. I tell students, really make sure your rec letters are from people who know you academically and from a character perspective. We want accurate information. Sometimes you think, well, I got an A in that class. I definitely want my professor to do that. But if you literally were in there and you said good morning or good afternoon and then goodbye and didn't really have much of a relationship with that professor or that teacher, and you just did well in their class, that might not be the rec letter. Sometimes the best rec letters that I've seen come from students who don't get the A, but they work really hard for the grade that they get. And that faculty member can really speak to that, to your drive, and to what you're willing to do to be successful. So just be conscious of who you ask to write that rec letter, and make sure they really know who you are and are a good judge of your character and why you might be a good fit for an institution or higher education for that matter.
Molly, can you talk a little bit, I know, about not necessarily the recommendations, but how the community college system might fit into this entire constellation?
Yeah, so again, probably not the last time you'll hear me say this tonight, but it is a little bit different than what the other schools are doing. But you know, again, the biggest thing that we really have is we are really just looking at a student's transcript, and that a lot of that has to do with making sure that this is a very accessible opportunity and process for all of our students. So you know, while we don't require any sort of recommendations or anything like that, you know, we still want students to feel, you know, comfortable and, you know, wanting to continue on with their education. You know, it's important, I think, for us that students know, even though maybe you know, aren't sure what you want to study or, you know, what you want to do or what your future holds, community college can be a really good option for you. You know, it's an incredibly cost-effective way to take some of those, you know, general education courses and kind of maneuver your way through maybe a few different things, get those classes under your belt, and then be able to say confidently, you know, this is what I want to do and I know how I'm going to proceed at this point. So again, it's a little bit different, you know, as we continue to talk about the application and the different components to it. There really isn't all that much more that we need from a student other than that transcript. But, you know, definitely still important to be maintaining your grades, you know, paying attention to the classes that you're taking, even for trades, you know, automotive or construction, you are still going to be taking math and science classes. You know, your nursing and your health sciences, your pre-radiography, whatever it might be, you know, you're looking at anatomy and physiology 1 and 2 and potentially physics and things like that. So it is definitely still important to be taking into consideration, you know, those classes that you're taking and not letting yourself kind of fall into that senior slump piece.
And I'm going to make a plug for the school counselors here that use your school counselors to help you identify who would be a good teacher to write your recommendation. Each counselor writes a recommendation for, or excuse me, every student has a school counselor recommendation written on their behalf, but also use us as sounding boards to help sort of distinguish what teacher or teachers would be appropriate to write a recommendation on your behalf. Like, we're there to have those conversations. There was a question in the chat regarding the early college program, and I'm going to ask one of our counselors to talk a little bit about that. Maybe not go into too much detail, but just explain what that is. Abby?
Sure. Hi. So yeah, somebody asked a question about what the early college program is. And some of you may have been hearing, I know there's been a lot in the news about the early college program and the UMaine system in general, as well as UNE. A lot of the schools have offered up, high school students can take up to 2 college classes during the school year, and the state pays for those. So it's a fantastic opportunity for students to get that experience of taking a college class. And so typically the students will, you know, talk to their counselor about it. again, the UMaine system and UNE have provided a whole website where they can go in and do some searching of courses that are offered and sign up for those online. So, and Nick, I don't know if maybe we can start. I know, and any of you could probably speak to this, but Nick, do you want to speak a little bit about, how this works and how the colleges look at those early college classes when they're reviewing a transcript? And actually, I apologize, before you start, I just want to clarify. So when a student, if they do take an early college class, they earn the 3 college credits from the school where they took that course, as well as that course will show up on their transcript for TA, and they earn 1 credit from TA. So it's a really nice opportunity for students.
And it provides students a lot of flexibility within their college experience as well, because you have the opportunity to take care of some classes, usually that are completed in your first year at any college or university. And we look favorably on those classes, and having those classes done and complete allows you, as I said before, some opportunities to take different classes while you're in college. It frees up some electives for you down the road as well. And whether it's through our college specifically, whether it's from a community college, whether it's from a private institution like UNE, I think it's a great experience for students to kind of get a taste of what a college course is like as well. Because it is slightly different than a high school course, that's for sure. So I always encourage students to take advantage of that opportunity. It's one in which a lot of students benefit from the experience and can provide you some college credit ahead of the game, and kind of gives you a step up as you go through this process.
Thanks, Nick. Can you, I'm going to have Darcy speak initially about activities and what does a college want to see on a student's application with regard to extracurriculars. We know sports, JV and varsity and beyond that. And also, how does a college view the quiet, really top student who lacks some extracurriculars and those that are very involved and involved with the community and a committed citizen with maybe average grades and average SAT scores? Like, how do you balance those two?
Yeah, both are great. And that's kind of going back to the first point of shaping the class. And we want different students here at UNE, and I think across most colleges. So we are not looking for one in particular, one student that's super involved and one that maybe is more academically sound and less involved. Both have their benefits, and that's wonderful. So for parents, try not to stress too much if you feel like, oh, I don't know if my son or daughter was involved enough, and the opposite, or were they too involved and their grade slipped. We're able to see both of those things pretty easily on a transcript. Some students are able to balance it all, and that's great as well. But the activities there, it's a nice thing to see just what students are interested in, whether it's theater or it's music or it's athletics. We kind of get a sense of, okay, they might fit in here, or this club or this organization or this type of student. So it kind of gives us a sense of where they might fit into the college. I don't think that we're looking for someone who is super involved or someone that isn't super involved. It's just a helpful tool for us when reviewing students and kind of seeing, oh, okay, that tells me a little bit more about who they are, what they like, how they spend their free time. Some students just aren't able to be in as many activities. There's work commitments, there's home commitments with babysitting and things like that. So we don't ever want to penalize a student because they weren't able to be involved in any way. Was there a second part to your question, Kelly?
Just how you balance those two, sort of when you're building your class, like what you're looking for.
Yeah, I hope I answered that in there, but
I think so.
Okay, that's great. If anyone else wants to jump in, thank you.
I just did want to jump in and say, given what's happened here in the past 12 months, I've seen a lot of students who have put on their applications that they have. I mean, obviously the ability to do a lot of things has been postponed for many of you, but perhaps you're the primary caregiver for a sibling or something like that. I've seen that a lot on applications this year. And I think it's really important that that information makes it on there, because we understand what kind of commitment that is and what kind of responsibility that is. And, you know, while, yeah, you weren't able to participate in hockey or chess club or whatever it might be, because you had to go home and take care of your younger sister or your younger brother, or perhaps you're the caregiver for an elderly relative or something like that. You know, it's been a very hard year for a lot of people, and students have been putting that information in their application, and it's been really helpful for us to have that info as we read through files.
That's a really important piece, Mitch. I appreciate you bringing that up. And we always talk with students who maybe have jobs and using that in terms of their, that does have an impact on their ability to participate in school-based extracurricular or what we consider traditional extracurricular. So I do appreciate that layer has certainly changed what the applications maybe are telling you. And I also wonder too, is job shadowing or community service, does that play a part in the application or the depth of the application for all of you?
I think it's important as a student to make sure you're sharing what you're doing. As from the admission side of the house, we don't have a checkbox in which we're saying, oh, you volunteered and you worked or you did sports. We don't do that as a whole, but I think it's important, whatever you are active in doing, that you do list out on the application. So if you're working 10, 20, 30 hours a week, that you're listing that, because that's an activity that takes a lot of your time up. And vice versa, where you may not be working, but you're volunteering. Or maybe you're involved in multiple clubs and organizations and you're a leader within those clubs and organizations. You know, that activity section within your common application or any general application that you fill out is really important for students to let us know what you've done, what you're involved in, and in some instances what you're planning to do, especially as some of you may start to fill out that application in August or September. You may have plans on what you're planning on doing in the upcoming year as well. So any of that information that you can provide to us is helpful as we review applications and kind of get a sense of you as an individual.
Great. Can you all talk a little bit about, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Abby. Yeah, please.
There were a couple questions in the chat just before we go too far away from the early college program. There were a couple questions. One was a question about whether early college credits are transferable to other colleges. And the answer to that is yes. So for students that take an early college class, they will, let's say they take an early college class through UMaine, they will have a UMaine transcript for those 3 credits, which they can then, if they end up going to another school, they can send that transcript to that school, and that school will review it and award and give them credit for that coursework. And then there was another question about how do we find out about signing up for the early college program? And I would just recommend that any student or parent who might be interested in learning more reach out to their school counselor, who can connect them with. Again, the UMaine system has one website that is fantastic, that students can do searches and see all the courses that are available to them through the UMaine system, including SMCC, YCC, the community colleges, and then UNE, the private schools, also have their own way of connecting with their courses. So I would just have you reach out to your school counselor.
And a question just popped up as well about, are these courses available in the summer? And the answer to that is yes.
They are. I will say, at least with the UMaine system, the state is not paying for any summer courses, but the UMaine system has, they have come up with funding to pay for one summer course. Hopefully I'm getting that. This is sort of new information that we're just learning about, but yeah, I'm getting a nod from my college colleagues. So yeah, so they will pay for one summer course.
And in addition to that, a student can take the early college courses and pay in addition to, and the per credit fee, I think, is $134 somewhere. So it's still very affordable. So if a student has taken their allotment of state and university college courses, they can still access more if they would like to. I have a senior on my caseload this year who has almost completed her entire freshman year. She's going to a school in Texas and they're accepting those credits. So it's really worth it to look at what a receiving school might be willing to accept. And she really took advantage of that possibility. So it's out there, and please do, I echo Abby, reach out to your school counselor to learn more about that. It's a great opportunity.
Can I put a quick plug in? If
Absolutely.
you take a summer course, summer isn't June and July. That's when the course is already happening. So you want to make sure that you're looking in April and even the beginning of May to sign up for summer courses. So the timeline's a little bit different. I know we hear summer, we think in May and June, but actually the sign up for those courses happens a little bit earlier on.
I'm going to move us towards the essay because that's a huge part of what happens or what juniors really think about and parents really think about it. I've gone through it myself this year and sort of nagging my daughter to get her college essay complete. And she did. So, and we know that our junior English teachers are all committed to working on a college essay, but I would love for each of the counselors, admission counselors, to talk about the college essay. What do you look for? What are your pet peeves? What are some of your favorites? What are you looking for? And what should a student avoid in that process?
I'll go first because I can be very quick on this. No essay required for us here at SMCC, but my best advice to students is be very careful of putting names of schools in your essay, because you never know when you're going to forget to switch it, and then it gets really awkward on this side. So.
I think the essay is really the chance for an applicant to be unique and set themselves apart from the rest of the applicant pool. So I do echo, just don't use another school's name in your essay unless you're writing a specific essay for each institution. But I can tell you statistically, you're probably not going to do that. So just make it general. If you can find, all the schools you're applying to have the same or a similar prompt, that's going to make it a lot easier for you to kind of write one essay for everywhere. I think Common App has specific prompts students can use built into their application. But really, it's be original in that piece. It is literally the thing that we get that's different from everything else. We see hundreds of applications from Thornton Academy. The transcripts all look the same. Your Common Apps, while having different activities and different names and everything, all built kind of the same. Rec letters, similar formatting. The essay is a chance for you to be different and to show us why you're a good fit for our institution. Make sure you proofread it. I know it's part of a lot of assignments, but when it's submitted, it should be a piece of work that you're proud of and that shows us that you're ready to write at the next level. And then my one pet peeve is do not use text speech to write a college essay. It is not cute. We don't want that. We want an actual written piece of work. So please don't do that.
The essay is definitely my favorite part. As Mitch said, it's really a chance for us to get to know you. So my advice is keep bringing it back to you. Write a sentence and answer why and bring it back to you. We get a lot of essays about heroes and people that students look up to, which is great, but why and bring it back to you. Some of my favorite essays are about a moment in time. Those are just so cool. If you could think about a real specific moment, it can be seemingly insignificant yet significant. So sometimes that's easier for students to identify, sometimes not, but some really cool ideas come out of just, you know, breaking down a minute or two. Pet peeves, like, I guess this year we had a student upload the wrong essay. I think she was proofreading her friend's essay and uploaded her friend's. So just be careful of that.
The things that I would add, read your essay out loud. I think a lot of times if you read it out loud and you hear it and it seems like it's flowing, you've probably got a good essay there. There's many different topics that students write about. There's not a topic that we desire. We want you to share whatever you feel comfortable with us. And when I say that, comfortable within reason, you don't have to get into too much family history or too much, I guess you could say, private information with us. When you're writing about a topic, let's say, you know, we have a number of students that apply for nursing and apply for education, and sometimes those essays go down the path of, I really enjoy helping people and I really love kids. Well, I hope so, if that's what you're going to plan on majoring in. So if you're going to write about those general topics, make sure you're developing it above and beyond the common sense themes that happen within that program of study. And the same can be said with athletics as well. You know, we get a number of students that have participated in athletics in high school, and it's a major part of your experience and maybe your identity as well. So you don't necessarily have to tell us about the story of you, you know, getting that big hit or sinking that big shot, but maybe telling us more about the growth that you've had as an athlete and what challenges you've gone through and what you've had to overcome specifically, and just make sure that you're developing your topic, as Darcy said, that it's really personable. It makes it's unique. It doesn't sound like necessarily another essay that we may have that's in regards to nursing or education or athletics. You know, we should be able to pick up your essay and read it and say, that's you as a student, that's that individual student. And I think that's an important thing that we want to get out of that essay, is that your voice is heard. You know, we don't have an opportunity necessarily to meet every student that applies. So your voice is in that application, you know, in that essay itself that Mitch mentioned. You know, it really is the thing that you have control over right now in this process. You can't go back and change your grades, unfortunately. And you really only have control over your application, your current essay, and of course your senior grades. You got control over that too, and make sure you do well there, but really take ownership into that college essay.
Thanks, you guys. We're going to talk a little bit about applications, maybe demystifying what early decision, early action means, what the advantages are and disadvantages for a student. And also sort of like, what is a common number of applications maybe that a student might send out? And really, how can, in the application, and we talked a lot about the essay, and I think you're right, authentic and their voice comes through, but how else could a student help you get to know them, either through the application or otherwise, whether it's a portfolio or a resume? Nick, will you start, since you're the one on my screen right now?
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Darcy, are you early action as well?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll talk briefly about early decision, even though none of us are early decision on this panel. Early decision is a binding agreement between you and an institution. You can only apply early decision to one institution. And if you're admitted to that institution, the decision is that you're going to attend that institution. Early decision is usually tied to your very selective institutions. Examples here in the state of Maine would be Bowdoin, Bates, and Colby, all offer early decision. And you can only apply to one of those schools early decision. But you're committing, if you're admitted to that institution, that you will go there. So that is the key with early decision. The rest of us are early action. So let's talk about early action. Early action is basically early notification. It's a non-binding agreement, meaning if you're admitted to our college or university for early action, you do not have to enroll. Usually there's some perks with early action outside of getting early notification. You know, in some cases, it allows you to be reviewed for your top choice major. You know, there's some programs at our institutions that do fill up. For example, we can guarantee students that are interested in a nursing program at UMaine, if you apply by early action, we know that there's going to be space available. But if you wait later in the process, that class may be filled up. So early action provides you opportunity to get into your first choice major. It may provide incentives around merit scholarship as well. To speak specifically at UMaine, we offer more scholarship opportunities at early action than we do come January or February. Now, early action and early deadlines vary, typically starting as early at some institutions as October, but most commonly November and December is when you see a lot of your early decision and early action deadlines. Those are important to look at each institution and see what those deadlines are, because they can vary institution to institution. So you want to make sure that you're on time. And by being on time, you want to submit a completed application by that deadline as a whole. So that also comes back to making sure that you're getting your letters of recommendation organized. And when you're submitting your application, that you kind of have every piece in order so that you know you're meeting the requirement as a whole. So I talked about the advantages. When it comes to how many schools to apply to, that's really up to the student and what your preference is. I would say on average, we're seeing students apply anywhere between 4 and 8 institutions on average. There are some students that apply to 12 or 15 schools. You know, it's really up to you as a student what you're looking for in a college or university, where you're looking to go, what you're looking to major in. And I think, you know, the biggest thing is when you're starting to plan out this process, you can do this early on. You know, you can start to create accounts specifically through the Common Application. You can create an account and kind of complete it in stages. You don't have to worry about necessarily, you know, you have a deadline December 1st. You shouldn't be sitting down November 30th to get this process done. You have plenty of time to plan ahead of time to submit that application, that essay, make sure that this high school is notified of where you're applying to, and the counseling office at Thornton Academy is awesome in the sense of assisting students in applying to colleges and universities. We always tell students there is benefit to applying early. The later that you wait, you may not have as much opportunities at certain institutions. So just to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think it's really important. There were a couple of questions in here that can kind of tie to the application. So, you know, timing, as Nick said, early decision, early action, then rolling admission. If you get it in early and you give yourself the best chance to get different things, right? So into the program of choice, some schools might have special scholarships tied to timing or whether you apply early action. It's also important to keep in mind, some schools can turn around financial aid packages really early. So if you get your application in sooner, you may figure out the financial piece of your picture a little bit sooner as well. So I know there was a question about, you know, finding out about scholarships. I think it's important to research each institution you're going to apply to see what their deadlines are for applications and how that ties into scholarships. So just be mindful of those. If you're applying to 12 or 15 schools, that is an enormous number to me. I thought 4 was big. That's what I did. Just keep in mind all of those deadlines, because it's going to be very, very important for you figuring out where you possibly could go the following fall, and financially you want to give yourself as many options as possible as well.
I just want to jump in really quick too, and kind of go off of, you know, Nick was saying maybe if you apply a little bit later, some programs fill up and you can't get into, say, the engineering program or the nursing program. SMCC's application is open virtually all the time. So if you don't get into that engineering program, you know, right out of high school, SMCC has a pre-engineering program, for example. So it is a great opportunity for you to come do those first 2 years. We have lots and lots and lots of articulation agreements with all 3 of the schools that are here today. So if you don't have that opportunity to go right out of high school, SMCC is a great way to get in and start those classes. They'll all transfer, and it's a really great way to prove to these other schools how committed you are, and that you're not just going to kind of maybe change direction, but say, this is truly what I want to do, so I'm going to do what I have to do to make sure that I get there.
I see that there are parents that are asking and students that are asking questions in both the Q&A and the chat. We would just ask that you use the Q&A. That's easier for us to see rather than navigating both. We do have a few questions in here. Jeff, can you take one for us?
Yes, so one of the questions is, how much impact do senior classes have in the admission and scholarship decisions? So who would like to take that one?
I could take that, Jeff. So senior year is important. For UNE, we do not calculate grades into merit scholarship purposes. However, the senior courses that you choose are extremely important. We want to see students who are continuing to challenge themselves. Like I said, that a really good indicator of how a student is going to do in college is how they're doing in high school. So continuing to challenge in the senior year is really important. Grades are obviously very important. However, we do not calculate that into our merit scholarships.
I would mention too, sometimes you're going to apply to a college or university and we're only going to see a list of your courses that you're taking in your senior year. So we may not have grades yet. And in some instances, we may actually request that you send us senior grades before we make a decision on your file. In other instances, we may not. You may have been a solid academic student and we're hoping that you continue that path. What I'll say is, even as an accepted student, let's say you're accepted in November before we even see senior grades, the high school is going to send us your midterm grades and your grade report throughout the year. So we do keep an eye on that. So even though it's something that may not have factored at your initial admissions decision, it is something we pay close attention to. And we're also taking a look at your final transcript as well. So your performance in your senior year is important in the sense of you want to finish on a strong note, because any admission offer is conditional upon successful completion of high school. So you can't be a student that was all A's and B's and suddenly decide once you've been admitted to colleges that I don't need to pass any of these classes anymore. That's not the case. An admissions office does reserve that right to revoke admission. It doesn't happen very often, but I've seen it happen for certain students that didn't live up to their end of the bargain in the sense of finishing out on a positive note.
And I'll just speak to the senior courses, just because Darcy mentioned how they do their merit. At USM, we will take into consideration senior performance. So that's why it's important, like I said earlier, to form connections with those places you're applying, because we're 20 minutes apart, but we have different policies, right? So I'm our merit scholarship coordinator at USM. So I get emails and phone calls from students, especially around this time of year, very often asking if they'll consider an appeal for their merit aid or their merit scholarship because they had a great first semester and they may have jumped into our next tier. So, echoing what Nick said, work hard your senior year, because more often than not, that's going to set up your work ethic moving into college. And you want to make sure that you bring a strong work ethic into your first year and moving forward at the collegiate level, because the work, it gets harder. There's more of a time demand on it. So really focusing and sharpening your time management skills and things along those lines will only serve you well moving forward.
Great. There are a few questions in the Q&A. Kelsey, will you take one?
Sure. Let's see here. We had a question about scholarships and then application and transcript fees, which we don't have a fee to send students transcripts. Can someone maybe talk about merit scholarships? I know you guys already did a little bit, but maybe just kind of an overview of what those are and how they're awarded again, just so people can kind of have that in mind. And then application fees, if you require them or not.
Yeah, so I'll go first about merit scholarships. Ours are completely based on a student's GPA, and it's generally that GPA that is on the transcript. I will say that Thornton does a great job of just putting a 4.0 number out there for us, which makes my life way easier when I'm reviewing for merit scholarships. So I appreciate that to all of you Thornton staffers. And then as far as application fee goes, we don't charge an application fee at USM for any of the apps that we take. So it's free to apply, which is great. So even if you're thinking about us, I'm not naive enough to think that every student is solely applying to USM. But if you're thinking about us, you know, you definitely want to get your application in before deadlines like merit, so that you're giving yourself a chance at scholarship opportunities.
I'll say for SMCC, we also don't charge any sort of application fee. But in terms of tuition and cost, you know, SMCC is $3,800 per year. That is not per semester, that's not per class, that is for the entire year. So most of our students, if not all of them, will do their entire 2 years or their entire degree in $10,000 or less. So SMCC can be a really cost-effective way. If a student wants to go on to a four-year institution, there are transfer, scholarships and transfer merit opportunities at most institutions. But then if the student does want to go on into the workforce, maybe they're in one of our trade programs, plumbing is usually one of the top ones that comes to my mind, because we're all probably very aware of how much we pay our plumbers. And it's a lot more than I make. So it can be a really good way if you get your degree in less than $10,000 and you go out and you start making a really significant amount of money. It can be a really, really good opportunity for students.
There is a question in the chat about knowing an applicant. How does an applicant know where they stand at some of the more selective schools, and in terms of where they are in the, I'm assuming this is sort of embedded in that question, although it wasn't explicitly stated, but how they fare with regard to the rest of the applicant pool? How would they know where they stand?
Well, I'm going to piggyback first the question before. We are free to
Sure.
apply as well, and merit scholarships are determined at the point of acceptance based on GPA. And I will say not every institution offers merit scholarships, so you'll have to do your research and see which institutions do offer merit scholarships and which do not. So don't be surprised by that or discouraged if an institution doesn't. Never rule out a school based on the cost of attendance, because you never know what the financial aid award you'll receive from that institution would be. So in regards to, can you remind me the question? Because I
Sure.
gotta, sorry.
No, sure, that's fine. I have to look at it again. So how does one know where they stand in relation to the others in the applicant pool, particularly with selective schools that have a lower admission rate?
Yeah. So that's going to be a challenging thing to determine, okay? As you're looking at selective schools, and by selective, we're talking an acceptance rate, under 20% a lot of times. We have some of those schools right here in the state of Maine. They're outstanding schools as a whole. What you can do is we tell students to do research within on the college's website, use the college board as well as a research tool to see what the acceptance rate, what the profile is of the student, their average GPA, what they're looking for as a whole. Your school counselors have worked with a number of students that have applied to these selective schools over the years, so they know class-wise what you should be taking that fourth year of language, that fourth year of math and science, so on, etc. But it can be a little bit difficult to pinpoint where you're actually going to fall, because those selective schools get thousands of applications and they're only going to be offering thousands and thousands of applications, and they're only looking to enroll a class of 500, 600, or 1,000 students. It can be a much more difficult way as a student that's applying to determine, do I really have a shot? So that's why when you're applying to some selective schools, you want to also make sure that you have some schools that you're going to be admitted into. You want to have a wide spectrum of schools overall that you're applying to, so that you're not caught in a situation in January and February where, unfortunately, you haven't been admitted to any of those selective schools that you were looking at. And now you're having to go back out and reapply to some other schools in the hopes of enrolling in a college or university. So do your research at that specific institution, see what their averages are, see what they're looking at, see what the acceptance rate is. Go in with an open mind of, I may be offered an opportunity, I may not. You know, in those selective institutions, they're looking for an academic fit, but also a social fit in building and shaping their class as well. So I tell students to keep an open mind in this process as you're looking, and making sure that you're having a breadth of colleges that you're looking at, because unfortunately, there's no button to say, yes, I got a 99% chance of getting into this institution, or I only got a 50% chance. You don't know, given the given year and what the school is looking for at those selected institutions. So all you can do is put your application in, hope for the best, and go from there.
Mel, can you, yep, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. So this question was here in the Q&A, and it was kind of dismissed. So I don't know if it was answered privately, but I think it is important to ask for all. So there was a question about how important is work experience. So can anybody speak about that?
So work experience is kind of one of those things that you'll put in that extracurricular section of your application. I think Nick actually mentioned it a little while ago, but it's definitely something we look favorably at. You know, work ethic, or excuse me, a job shows that you're willing to accept responsibility and that you're forced to manage your time a little bit more. So work experience is something that's really beneficial to put on your college application, because we're going to look very favorably at it.
There is a question as well about, and it's a COVID specific question, so I think it's worthy of asking all the panelists that are here tonight. In terms of grades and interventions, and maybe knowing some of the challenges that students have faced accessing their education. TA has been in a hybrid model for the entire academic year. And we know all of us are in education because we want to be with students. We don't enjoy this hybrid model. We would rather have people here in school all the time. And so one of the interventions that we have for some students, not all, is a pass-fail option. How might that look? And how might you interpret that on your end, knowing sort of the year that we've had?
We've seen it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you, not only here in the state of Maine, but across New England, across the United States, there's been a number of schools that in the students during this year have been an option for students to receive traditional grades or pass fail. And there's a number of schools that we're just seeing P's, passing for the class, which is fine. So we're not penalizing students based on this situation and based on this grading situation. I will say, if we had questions before, meaning a student may have had some struggles in that freshman and sophomore year and then received some passing grades only, that we may want to take a look at senior grades. So a college or university may hold and take a look at your first quarter grades or your first semester grades. But I can say that you won't find any college that is going to penalize any student because they were given a pass or fail grade whatsoever.
Thank you for that, Nick. Anything different from the other schools and universities here?
No, I think I'll just echo what Nick said, and that it is such a difficult time. We saw a lot of that in the spring, so we're sensitive that it's not ideal. And if we do have a question, then we typically call the school counseling office to find out more information before making a decision or asking for more grades. So we'll find ways to get more information before making any kind of negative decision.
I want to respect folks' time. I'm wondering if there are any other questions that parents have or that counselors are feeling like they would like to have or see answered. And to the panelists, if there's anything specific that you would like to say that you haven't had an opportunity to say to families and students that are here tonight, or will be tuning in later to watch it in recorded form.
I think now more than ever, it's really important to form a relationship with people at schools you're thinking about applying to. I know our office adopted a scheduling system where students can log on to our website and set up an appointment to meet with us. Really, as far as if my schedule permits it and your schedule permits a certain time, you can log on and make that appointment, and I get a notification, and we can do it via phone, Zoom, Meets, whatever, really those three preferences, whatever one you prefer, we can do that. We had a lot of students take advantage of that this fall with questions about their applications and things along those lines. So look into those options. And then, as we said when we first started, hopefully, the visit experience changes and allows people to get out to campus and a little bit more. Our ability to meet with you in a one-on-one confined space might be a little more difficult than it has been in the past, but we'll do our best to accommodate your needs if you are there in person to answer those questions. And if not, meeting with us in a virtual platform is a great way to get some specifics answered, as well as getting to know the person who reads your application.
Any more parting words, Molly or Nick or Darcy?
I think it was mentioned in the chat or one of the question and answer sections. Deadlines are important. So take a look at colleges and universities to see when their admissions deadlines are, and also when their financial aid deadlines are, in the sense of when you should have your FAFSA submitted. And in some institutions, some selective institutions require a CSS profile or additional supplemental app on top of the free application for federal student aid. So do your research ahead of time so you know when to apply to institutions for admission and financial aid purposes. As students, if you're not sure what you want to major in, it's perfectly fine. We have a number of undecided students that attend all of our colleges and universities. It's perfectly okay to not be sure. I joke around at times that I don't know what I want to do when I grow up either. I love the job that I'm in right now, but you never know. In the course of your lifetime, you could have multiple jobs in multiple different areas as a whole. So it's okay to be undecided. If you're an undecided student right now, take advantage of opportunities to talk to friends that you may have that have certain interests, parents of friends, to see what they're doing for jobs. If you get the chance, if you have an area that you're kind of interested in, do a job shadow if you can. You want to take advantage of all the resources and opportunities that you have here going into your last year of high school. Utilize your school counseling office. You're very fortunate. I said it again, you have a very strong student counseling office at Thornton Academy, and great people that work in that office that are very supportive, and very educated as well in the sense of what we do as colleges and universities. So there's a number of resources available not only at Thornton Academy that you can use, but you can use us as colleges and universities as well. Ask questions. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we can put you into contact with people that you need to talk to as well, whether it be current students or whether it be faculty and staff. We're a resource here to help you make an educated decision on an institution that's right for you at the end of the day.
And I might also just say, take advantage of the opportunities that are presented for you. They may look different than what you thought they were going to be at this point in time. We're all keeping our fingers crossed that it's going to get back to kind of our normal way, but you're all here tonight, so you're taking advantage of this opportunity. These things will continue to happen, at various institutions, and in different ways. Schools will be able to offer different types of info sessions and open houses and however their tours may go. So just take advantage of the opportunities that are available to you now, and don't wait to kind of put off this search process. You don't really want to be rushed at the end of the day. So take your time. Especially for junior students, take this summer to really get that list down, so that you feel comfortable going into your senior year with what you've got in front of you.
I'll just say thank you all for attending. I hope that one thing that you got from this is seeing our faces and hearing from us that we are approachable and we're accessible. We want to talk to students. We want to talk to parents. So we've been asked every question. So do not feel that you can't call us or email us with any kind of question. And I'll definitely speak for some of the schools that are not here as well that can be more intimidating. Some of the more selective schools, they're also very accessible and willing to talk to anyone. So I hope that we're friendly faces. I hope that we were informative, but just know that it doesn't have to stop here, and that we want to hear from students, and we love hearing from parents as well. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you all. Thank you to the panelists, and it's always great to see you. I enjoy this event every year. It's really, actually, it's been quite a success, even with the webinar and doing it virtually, although I think, hopefully we can be back in the auditorium again in the future, but thank you so much for sharing all the wisdom that you have. I wanted to let parents and students know that we'll be offering a junior parent night or family night on March 30th, which will be very specific to the TA process, and it will be a conversation with the school counselors that are here tonight to give you an overview of how we manage that in our office and in the context of in our work with your students. And we'll go into specific things like the SCORE platform, which maybe you've heard about, and what the Common App is, and different things that are a little more granular, but that will help you with as you move through this process and understanding your children as they walk through that. I also wanted to remind those of you that we are really aware that the SAT is still in flux, and there are schools, as Nick mentioned, that are our next academic cycle or admission cycle are SAT optional, but we do have the May 8th date and the June 5th date. We don't host it at Thornton Academy, but there are many schools around us like Biddeford and Bonnie Eagle who offer that. So wanted to make a plug for that. And then we also have Jessica Whittier joining us from the Finance Authority of Maine. She'll do a seminar webinar, April 28th, which will speak specifically about financial aid. And that's not just for junior parents. That's for anyone who's in high school or even middle school who have children that will be headed into post-secondary institutions and thinking about finances. It's not too early to think about that. And the last plug that I'm going to make, and we don't have a date yet, is the Real Cost of College, which is hosted by two of our counselors here, Abby Moore and Mark DiFrancesco, who is on the other team, but they host their own passion project, really, about helping students understand and families understand the real cost of college. And so that information, we'll push that all out. I don't expect people to remember that, but I just want you to know that it's coming down the pike and to be looking for it. So if there are no other questions, thank you, panelists, thank you, counselors, and thank you very much, parents, for being here, and know that we're here. And if you have any questions moving forward, please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us, and we'll do our best to answer or point you in the direction where you can get your questions answered. So thank you, everyone.